South African government calls for Israel to be investigated by the International Criminal Court for Crimes Against Humanity.
Here's a summary of the article.
Israel and Hamas exchanged heavy fire, in a dramatic escalation between the bitter foes sparked by unrest at Jerusalem's Flashpoint Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Johannesburg, the South African government said it wants Israel's conduct to be investigated and referred to the International Criminal Court for Crimes Against Humanity. Despite intensifying diplomatic efforts to ease 6 days of fighting, Israel's Air Force struck several sites in Gaza overnight, while rockets were again fired towards Israel. South Africa strongly condemns the unjust attacks by Israel on Palestinian civilians and calls on Israel to immediately stop all these hostilities and comply with international law, said the department's spokesperson Clayson Monyela. Urging for a ceasefire and emergency talks, Monyela said South Africa remains committed to establishing a viable Palestinian state existing side by side in peace with Israel. A solution must be premised on a just settlement, with just laws that are right-based and that facilitate equality and equity for all that live in the territories of Israel and Palestine. Pro-Palestinian organizations said condemning Israel while continuing to do business with the state is cynical.
This post received a score of 79,000, with an upvote ratio of 75%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Please world, hold the Israelis accountable.
Anyone even remotely familiar with South African apartheid should be able to identify the crimes and human rights violations occurring in Palestine. The media tends to ask, where are the Gandhis or Mandelas in Palestine? But Israel made it illegal to not just vote but also to have peaceful demonstrations.
To add to this, over half of Palestine is under 18. Yup, so it'd be a bloody young Gandhi or Mandela.
South Africa like, we know how to spot 'em.
We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
South Africa looking to pass the torch of apartheid champion, IC.
SA admitted it was running an oppressive state and worked towards changing it democratically. Is it sunshine and roses? No, but today it has one of the most modern constitutions in the world. Struggling with execution but holding. Edit, added modern and spelling correction.
SA was pushed by Western countries to stop apartheid while Israel is being rewarded for being the way it is.
The West was perfectly happy to support South Africa. Until it became too difficult to do so because South Africans mobilized other African countries. However, the real reason why apartheid is gone is because of the resistance of black Africans in South Africa. South Africa went from being able to fight in the neighboring countries to having lost control of townships.
Nothing will happen as usual. US will use its influence to block any action so it can continue selling arms to Israel and keep a foothold in the region.
Based on the chatter I'm seeing online, this time is different. Usually there is a lot of back and forth online about these kinds of things in support of Israel or Palestine. But this time there seems to be far more criticism against Israel. And the voices of people that are calling it anti-Semitic to be against Israel are far fewer and quieter. The results of this may be the same in terms of the US blocking any attempts to hold Israel accountable for the horribly lopsided reaction to Palestine this time. But I really think this has been a tipping point for many people in terms of how they view this conflict. There is widespread disgust and outrage against Israel's actions this time. Far more than I've seen before. And Israel has lost serious momentum in terms of spinning these atrocities in their favor.
I definitely agree, but I wouldn't count on the US government to listen to a popular movement like this anytime soon. Especially considering how politicians on both sides of the aisle receive loads of cash from our military-industrial complex.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.